welcome back to Runway from the Rav, a Project Runway podcast. My name is Riley.
And I'm Maggie.
And today we'll be discussing Project Runway All-Star Season 6, Episode 6, Thrown for a Loop by Betty Boop. The names are always great. I want to preface this episode by saying that we are snowed in today, so Maggie and I are recording slightly differently. We're both recording from the comfort of our own homes instead of our normal setup inside a RAV at a park. So we are recording via Skype, so if we sound different or there's some technical difficulties, we apologize. Hopefully next week it'll be back to normal. But for now, we just want to get this content out there, okay?
Yep.
So, for this episode, we're already at the top 10, which I'm half surprised, but then half also that's it. We still have 10 more to go. It's just been a kind of a weird season. It's so fast-paced, and yet each week, I don't know. We've even had a double elim already. Mm-hmm. So this week, the designers meet Alyssa Milano on the runway, and she's standing there talking about how their person for this challenge is an iconic person of Hollywood. They've been in hundreds of movies. They're this icon of fashion and sexuality and stuff, and all the designers who, and Edmund's oh, maybe it's Rihanna, and I'm yeah, hundreds of movies. Yeah, Rihanna. But it turns out it's Betty Boop.
Oh, Betty.
Yep. Oh, Betty. So I looked it up, and there's some pictures of the set. And so when you're watching it on TV, you see an animated Betty Boop pose behind the light screen and walk out, and she's in her high-pitched Betty voice, "Hi, designers." Rah, rah, rah. But the designers just had a TV screen with a JPEG picture of Betty Boop, just a still image. And they had to act all surprised and excited. It's on Lifetime's website. You can see it. It's just a TV screen next to Alyssa Milano with a low-res snip from Google of Betty Boop.
Okay.
Anyway,
I wondered how they did that. I mean, obviously you knew that they weren't really seeing that, but
yeah. Well, they didn't go for someone in a costume. They just went with animated.
Yeah.
Betty Boop, but she comes out and says that she wants a young, chic Hollywood look for a modern day Betty Boop, and that the outfit she will wear. And then Alyssa Milano lets us know that the winner of this challenge will also get to release a limited edition line at Torrid, which is a plus size fashion store. So, and then that they'll get 1 day and $200 at Mood. And then that they'll actually be sketching at Mood as well. So it's because there's nothing related to Betty Boop anywhere. They can't go anywhere and see Betty Boop. They can't go someplace to be inspired by Betty. It doesn't exist. I did a tiny amount of research. I don't know about you, Maggie, but I don't know a whole lot about Betty Boop. Did you ever watch her cartoons or her hundreds of movies growing up?
No, I feel that was before our time. I don't know. I mean, obviously I know who she is, but no, can't say I've ever actually watched anything.
Yeah, the only two things I know about Betty Boop is the boo boopy doop thing.
Yeah.
And that she's usually a sticker on the back of this jacked up pickup truck. That's it. Sexy pinup girl and then Betty Boop. That's all I know about Betty Boop.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to Mood to sketch. Which is kind of interesting. I don't know that they've ever sketched there before, but you could maybe spot, some fabric or a textile and get inspired. No one did that. Swatch wasn't there, so you couldn't be inspired by Swatch. But a lot of the designers kind of paired off right away and were sketching and be ooh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. And Joshua is standing next to Char, but he's not talking to her. He's turned away. He's I don't need anyone. It's just okay. It was Amanda from last week where she was just randomly this is a competition. I don't need friends. And it's just okay. And we discussed that to death last episode, but it just seems there's always someone, even when that person leaves the show, someone else will take over. I don't need friends.
Yeah.
I can do that by myself. And then they run around Mood for 30 minutes. Do you have any Mood moments?
Not really. It did seem like they got more time there, that segment of the show, got more time is what I mean.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's just because we're getting down to lower numbers, so they have a little bit more time to show that. But No, I didn't feel like it was super exciting. Like, it was just your average mood visit.
Yeah, someone, the classic running around scene, someone like Helen's like, I've never worked with stripes before, so I want to buy stripes. And it's like, makes sense. Char's like, I've never worked with neoprene before. I want to buy neoprene. Sure. Someone else, I can't remember now who it was like so excited they found something and they're like, it's only 50 cents. Like, good to know there's bargains even in New York City. And then we get a little bit of like, I was running up to the register and I saw like polka dots, so I bought them. And it's like, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? So straight to the workroom then? I mean,
yeah.
We did get more time at Mood, but nothing really interesting happens at Mood
No.
unless someone is like stealing fabric from somebody else or someone like falls down the stairs. Like otherwise it's usually just like, oh, cool, Mood. So in the workroom, we had a couple people struggling this week. So first was Shar, who, like I said, she bought neoprene in this beautiful kind of like teal color, but she's never worked with neoprene before. And like cutting it was hard, sewing it was hard. She likes to drape things and she's like, it won't drape. So it's just like, well, you kind of picked a fabric that you knew you'd struggle with. And then similarly, Helen was like, well, I've never worked with stripes before and I want to like line them up and cut them this way and do them this way. And it's just like, okay. Like, definitely push yourself and like go out of your comfort zone sometimes, but it also seems odd in a competition where you're making something for Betty Boop, which is already weird. Like, what a weird request. To be like, yeah, and I'm also going to pick something I've literally never worked with before, even though the judges don't care and didn't ask for it. Like, that's a logic leap I didn't follow. I wasn't there. Edmund did the same thing when he was at Mood. He's like, I don't normally go for like prints or like bright colors, but I'm going to go for this really obnoxious print that looks like this digital manipulated like photo printed on fabric of like blue and purple smoke or something. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go with this. But then he really struggled this week. He made the same dress like 3 times. So
yep.
He first made it in the pattern. And everybody was like, it's terrible. And he's like, yeah, maybe it is. So then he made one in white with like black mesh. And then we'll get to the Anne critiques, but she basically was like, don't do that. So he went back to the fabric. Like Edmund made like 3 looks in a day. And then we had a little shade. So before we get to Anne critiques, we had a little shade this week from Ken and Joshua in their talking heads. Ken was like, if I was Shar, I would just like leave right now. Like I would just like throw that in the trash and just leave the show and be like, I'm done. Like don't even show it on the runway. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he said something similar of Edmund that he would just throw it in the trash and be done. And it's like, okay, Ken, Ken was so nice for the first couple episodes. And now the classic Ken, he's peeking through.
Yeah.
And then Joshua, the last few episodes, has been getting very sassy. And he had some very sassy talking head moments as well, where it's just like, I wouldn't wear that. I wouldn't make that. It looks like a dirty cloth or what. And it's just like, whoa, okay, wow. All right. So then Anne comes around and does her critiques. And I thought they were slightly better this week. Like, I feel like she gave a little more input than she has been. But she also steered a few people wrong, I think. So, like, with Edmund, he showed her this tiny scrap of his, like, patterned fabric that didn't show, like, all the intricacies of this pattern or how it kind of looked like reminiscent of a body part. He just showed this tiny bit of the color. She's like, ooh, I love that. Go back to that. So he's like, okay, maybe I'll change my look. And then same thing with Merlene. She's trying to do this like multi like textile thing with like solid and something patterned. And Anne's like, just go with the blue. And I think maybe that led her wrong. And but I felt her critiques were slightly better. Do you agree?
I do. Yeah, I noticed that too.
And we saw more of her critiques with more people, like.
Which, yeah, maybe it's part to, like, it's in part, like, just because of the editing, like, in the previous episodes, we just haven't had as much time because there were more people. But, I don't know. I agree. This was a much better episode for Anne.
Yes. So then, not much else really happened in the workroom. I guess when Anne was also coming around, she was talking to Helen, who was making this whole thing with stripes, and Anne was like, the gray color is just very businessy, because the stripes were like navy blue and gray. And then she saw the polka dots and she's like, polka dots are always young and fresh. And I was like, disagree. But, I'm not an editor of a fashion magazine. What do I know? I don't know nothing. And Helen was like, you're right. So, and it's funny because that gray comment about the stripes will come up again later. But, so Anne she had slightly better critiques, or at least said more about what she felt. Like a couple times she just, like, she's always like, make it sexy. And it's like, okay, let's get past that. Like, let's say something else. But she also steered some people in ways that, like, I don't know. We'll see. But always in the workroom. I'm trying to think of other moments. I was expecting more like scenes of the sister wives, Ken, Fabio, and Anthony, like doing stuff together. But other than a couple scenes of like them in the background, like one or two of them like talking to each other, I didn't know. I thought that would be like a theme now for the rest of the season, was going to be like this strong sister wives friendship, but didn't really see any of that.
Nope. One time only, I guess.
Yeah, just enough for Amanda to look really shady when she says, like, I don't need friends.
Yep. It's all about the editing.
Yeah.
All about the drama.
The producers want the drama. Hashtag we're here for it. Any other workroom moments for you?
No, not really. Like, Betty Boop. I don't know. That's really all you have to say about the whole episode.
I know. Especially, like, we're millennials. We're right in, like, the middle of the millennial time frame. It's just, like, Betty Boop isn't relevant to us. Now, I know that Project Runway's, like, key audience is probably people slightly older than us, or people who are more, like, in their, like, 40s. Yeah. But it just seems like, I did a little research on Betty Boop, and she, like, originally started in the 1930s. She was originally a poodle, which I did not know. Wow. And they just slightly changed her design to be a human, and she's supposed to be like this flapper girl. So I'm like, why? Like, and she hasn't really done anything. Like, there hasn't been like a Betty Boop like cartoon or movie or anything since like the 80s. So it's just like, I get that she's like an icon, but it just feels like it's kind of an out of touch thing. Like, who cares about Betty Boop in 2018?
Right.
Like, she's such an archaic, like, body type as well, and like, not archaic body type, I didn't mean it like that, but like an archaic like trope. I don't know. Yeah. She's just like, I don't get it. But I should mention they had a statue of her in the workroom, which helped Joshua because he wanted to draw her head shape. Yeah. And then a few other people, like, I guess she was an inspiration there. And then at one point I almost forgot about this. After Anne leaves, she, like, as she's leaving, she's like, and we have a special guest from one of Betty Boop's friends. So, like, good luck. And she, like, backs out of the room, and they all, like, huddle around this TV. And who is it? No other than Popeye the Sailor Man. Talk about relevant in 2018. we got Betty, we got Popeye, and he's, like, talking about how, like, his first, like, debut was in a Betty Boop, like, show, and then he ended it with, like, remember, Betty is a sexy goyle. And it's just like, oh my God. It's such a reductive character to be like, all there is to Betty Boop is this high-pitched, childish voice, her big, like, baby-like bulbous head, her quote-unquote, like, flapper sexy body, and that's it. Like, from what the little research I did, which was just reading the Wikipedia page, okay, and doing some Google image searching, like, that's all she is. Like, she's just, like, this, like, doll that moves around. It's just, like, especially for, like, the year that it is. Granted, I don't know when they filmed this. It wasn't 2018, obviously, but they knew it'd be releasing then. And just thinking of, like, the Me Too movement and all these other, like, strong, like, women and female figures and, like, feminism kind of coming into its own is just like, what the hell are we doing with Betty damn Boop? She's like this childlike baby voice sexy person, and it's just like, God, that's trouble. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Ugh, it's like a bikini on a 2-year-old. I don't have to like it. I don't have to like it. All right, let's move on past that. So yeah, we got a little Popeye moment, and then everybody was like, that's right, Betty is sexy. I need to think about that in my design. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So let's just move on to the runway, shall we?
This episode was hilarious.
This whole season has been kind of a train wreck, but like this episode was like full on train wreck.
Yeah, this was a new low. I think my favorite part was, at the beginning when they introduced the challenge and they had to have the talking heads, and like I think Fabio was like, "Oh my god, I'm obsessed with Betty Boop."
Yeah, it's like a clock or something where like her hips wiggle, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's not objectifying the women's bodies. That's fine. Okay. And then someone else, I think Helen was like, I used to watch the cartoons at my grandma's house, which like that, I'm like, okay, well that's a little more than like I bought a clock that wiggled its hips. Haha. And then you could tell that most of these other designers, which several of them are millennials or at least younger, are like, they know who Betty Boop is, but they don't really know who she is or have like interacted with her. Like, she's not part of their culture. Like, it's like a name you've heard, but it just, I just don't understand it. I just don't. And it's not like they were like pushing anything for Betty Boop. It's not like there's a new Betty Boop movie coming out or something. It's just like, and then for Torrid, like for the winning prize is a really great prize to have your stuff sold in a store. Like for a newer designer, that's awesome. And Torrid's a national brand, but it's also a plus size brand, which I wouldn't necessarily consider Betty Boop to be plus size. Granted, she's a cartoon character, so it's hard to tell. But then I'm also just wondering, like, so last season we had actual like plus size models and a bigger difference in body shape and body size, and then this season it's all more traditional models. So it just seems like, why don't we take the Torrid prize from this season, put it into last season, and then let's take this like JC Penney stuff if we have to and put it into this. Like it just seems like an odd fit. Like Torrid is slightly higher end, I would say, compared to JC Penney. I think it's like one step up. And we have one here locally, like, they have some cool designs, and they definitely use a lot of branded stuff, like Star Wars stuff and other Disney things. So I guess Betty Boop fits in with Torrid's kind of like edgy, but like culturally relevant line, but it just seems, I don't know. It was an odd choice. It's just an odd episode.
Yeah.
It's like the Red Robin suit challenge, where it's like, from several seasons ago. I don't know. Okay, how long can I just complain about Betty Boop? Let's move on to the runway. So our guest judge this episode was Rebecca Minkoff, who's a designer, probably most known for like accessories, like shoes and handbags and stuff, but she also does women's wear and things. So thank God we got a designer. I was so excited for the guest that it wasn't just random actor or actress or model number 3, but that it's an actual designer. And I think she had much more insightful things to say.
Yeah.
Because she could critique the look from like a construction standpoint or from like an actual person who's designed things and had to launch collections and things. Like she just had more intuitive things to say than I like blue. It's just like, okay, sure. Everyone likes blue. It's like the most popular color of all time, like most famous favorite color. So that was nice. And then obviously we still had Isaac and Georgina. So first up down the runway, we have Joshua, and he took like a streetwear twist to it. And what he put down the runway is this white crop top t-shirt with like a little V-cut cutaway back. And then on the front, he took this play on the I Love New York or like I Heart New York shirts. Only it's Betty's little like head silhouette with lipstick and earrings. Betty. So like I Heart Betty. Or I Betty, I guess, literally. It's I Betty. And then under, like, paired with that is this black mesh, like, 6-panel skirt with a little flare out, and it goes to the knee, and then, because it's mesh, you can see what's underneath it, and it's, like, white, like, tiny booty shorts, but it's, like, a romper at the same time. It has, like, these white things that go up and over her shoulders, but they are just cut to the very top of the thigh, and then it has a little garter like Betty Boop wears, and then he paired this again with the denim peep toe lace up booties. What did we think of Joshua's?
This one, I liked some parts of it. I like the more graphic t-shirt. We talked last week about how we like his more graphic style. The point you made about how, like, yeah, it does technically say, I, Betty, Betty. Like, so I think it would have been a nice touch to, like, since her hair, I think, is, like, pretty recognizable, to, like, maybe shape the face into more of a heart, just to, I don't know, strengthen that message a little bit more. I think that could have worked, but I like the idea. But what I don't like is the skirt is okay, but I don't like that it's just mesh see-through. And, like, I do not understand the underneath part at all. Like, the booty short, whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't feel, especially since this is, like, a torrid challenge, like, I think this should be more ready to wear. And, like, who's gonna wear that in public? Just have your underwear showing like that? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate Joshua's like graphic kind of thing, but he's also like it just this is taking streetwear almost to like night walker. Like I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
like lady of the evening almost. I wish the like booty short romper thing was black.
Yeah.
Or even red. Like no one went with like the classic Betty Boop red. Like he has a tiny
Yeah.
bit here of her lipstick, and then a few people had like the red lips. Like this, he like styled his model with a red lip and then like a wavy slicked back hairdo. And I think like that styling is good. The shoes I will never understand. And I'll point out every time he uses them. But I think if the skirt was either lined, like up until like the peplum part, if that was lined black and then the bottom part was meshed, you could kind of see the garter. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would look better. Or if like the romper thing was black. Or even if they were like true little like denim booty shorts. I don't know. It seems really unresolved to me to just be like, they just look like white granny panties and you can just see them.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Betty Boop's like sexy, but she's in like a dress. Like she's fully covered,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like she just has like an exposed like décolleté and legs. But Joshua's chosen for critique in the top. Next up, we had Edmund. And Edmund, like I said, he made like 3 different looks and he ended up on this one. So he's using this. So he made a little dress and it's got a halter neck, but then it also has straps as well, really thin spaghetti straps. It goes to like the middle thigh and it's got all this like volume in the front and in the back. And it's like white background, but then it's like blue and purple and black, like swirls, kind of like smoke or something. And it's like mirrored on the fabric, and then he just kind of like bunched it up at the bottom. What did we think of Edmund's?
This one, I thought it was okay. Um, I thought it was definitely more youthful. I think I am glad that he went back to the print and the color rather than like, what did he have in the workroom? Like white and black,
Mm-hmm.
like as his kind of like in between thought dress. I think this one's definitely more successful than what he had been working on. But I don't know. It was alright. What'd you think?
I wish that there was something solid to break up the textile.
Yeah.
Like if he'd paired it with like solid white or solid black, like on the top or the skirt, I think it would have balanced it better. And then just the bunching seems, this is like my favorite word because it sounds like I'm giving real critique. Unresolved. Like the bunching just, it's voluminous, but it's in weird spots where it's like, who wants like this big, like bunchy, as Alyssa Milano calls it, saggy balls look in the front, and then it ruffles around to the back, and then it's like saggy ball butt. Like it's unflattering.
Yeah.
I like how like it pops on the model skin tone. I like the overall colors in the fabric. I wish it looked different.
Yeah.
He was chosen for teak in the bottom. Next up, we had Char, and she put down this like teal neoprene dress, sleeveless, with the classic Char like neck ruffle thing off to one side. The back has like this asymmetrical kind of bias cut with a little weird peekaboo under one arm, and then the skirt in the front she has like darted the top of the dress, and then it comes down into these two like poofy ruffles. You can see the white lining underneath, and then it's kind of cut at like asymmetrical angles, and the front ruffle is like 6 inches higher than the hem of the rest of the dress. What did we think of Char's?
I thought this was really bad. Nothing about the design made sense to me. Like, I didn't understand the weird like neck thing, and why was like the skirt all bunched up in the front like that, and then like you have a weird peekaboo on the back, and I don't know why she thought this fabric would work. I don't know. It looks horrible, like with the lining being visible like that. Ugh. And then, a rainbow shoe just to tie it all together.
Yeah, the rainbow stiletto.
God. Not her best. What'd you think?
I like the color a lot.
Yeah.
That's it, which I believe is also what Alyssa Milano said. So, like we said, like, with Torrid, like, slightly more ready to wear, and knowing that Torrid's a plus-size store, this just seems like an odd choice to have, like, these weird bunching at the front. Like, who's that going to fall well on if it's not, like, this statuesque thin model? Like, no one. And then that weird back cutout just basically means you can't wear a bra. Mm-hmm. And I feel like most average women or plus size women are wearing a bra every day. Yeah. So it just seems like now you got to try to hide that. And then like just the weird asymmetrical hem, and then just knowing that neoprene's heavy, it just doesn't feel like a super, like the first thing you think of when you want to make like a fun, youthful, chic Hollywood dress is like neoprene. So in case she needs to go diving in the water, she good. Like, this doesn't make sense. But she's chosen for teak in the bottom. Next up, we had Kimberly, and she made a jumpsuit. So Kimberly put down, it's like this black, white, and pink floral fabric, and she made that into a jumpsuit with a full wide leg pant all the way to the ground. And like the middle thigh of that, she cut out about 3 inches and put in a black mesh to like connect the like top of the jumpsuit to the bottom part of the leg, which is a similar trick to what she did last week, only last week she used like safety pins. And then over the top of the jumpsuit, she has this little black like see-through jacket, kind of like a bomber jacket almost, but it only goes like a midriff style, and then it's like bedazzled at the top, and it's like half zipped, and it has kind of like bell sleeves. What did we think of Kimberly's?
Her style is so crazy. I don't know. But like, for some reason, I don't know. I don't hate this. I feel like for this piece, I kind of love it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't understand it at all, but for some reason, I kind of like it at the same time. Like, I like that black mesh with, like, the floral pattern that she chose. Like, I like that print. And the sequins, like, I don't... It's such a weird combo, but I did not hate it. But I don't know. I'm contradicting myself, because I don't know. I'm baffled. How about you just say what you think?
I hate it. I'm a hard sell on a jumpsuit, as is. But this just seems like she reworked her idea from last week. Yeah. But I don't see it. I think it's more successful than her look last week, but not by a lot. And I don't see Betty Boop in this at all. No. Which is a phrase I never want to say again. Because I don't think about Betty Boop at all. But I don't see Betty Boop in this. I don't see, or any, like, young, chic Hollywood starlet. Like, I think Anne mentioned, like, Haley Steinfeld and someone else who's, like, on the cover of magazines a lot. And I'm just like, I don't see either of them wearing this. Like, she's fully covered up except for a little bit of her neck. And then, like, it's, like, this peekaboo thing with the mesh on her, like, thigh and her arms. But it just seems so weird. And then the super wide pant, it's weirdly retro, but not like retro enough to be Betty Boop. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like 20s to 40s is like what I would allow for Betty Boop retroism. This is like weird 70s to me. But she was safe. Next up, we had Helen, and she put down this, it's a dress, and it's sleeveless, and at the top part is gray and navy stripes, off the shoulder, kind of topless, or topless, strapless, and then the skirt is a black background, white polka dot, pretty big polka dot, I would say like an 1.5 inch diameter polka dot, and it's in this, she draped the skirt in a weird way where on one side it's kind of like a mini skirt, and then on the other side it's kind of like this draped longer skirt to about the like middle of the calf and kind of cuts up diagonally across the front. And then at the hip she has like this little bit of navy coming down over it, and then she paired all of this with a black choker and yellow heels. What did we think of Helen's?
This one is okay, but I didn't really care for it too much. I kind of like the combo of the stripes and the polka dots, but I don't feel like it's working. Like I think the stripes look okay. I don't know, kind of okay from the back, but I don't like on the front how it creates that weird kind of like box shape, just like on her, I don't know, torso area. I just think that's, I don't know, that creates kind of a weird looking shape. And then I don't understand the skirt shape. Like, I don't really like the mini skirt, long skirt indecisiveness. I don't know. It's kind of strange. What'd you think?
Yeah, the top of this and the bottom don't look like they go together to me. And then the top, the way she cut it is just so weird. And then I think Georgina pointed out that she's like, I kind of like it, but I don't like the gray, which is hilarious because Anne said the same thing. Like, what do they have against gray? But, and then Rebecca Minkoff said it looked like the top was like a men's suit.
Yeah.
Which I think is accurate. And then the bottom is this more like flirtatious thing. I don't dislike the skirt. I wish it didn't look quite as like diaper pants in the back. I think the front is really cool. I actually really like it from the front. And it moved kind of interestingly, but from the back it looks like a mistake. Like the draping just isn't there for me in the back. And then the top is just, it's so boxy and weird. And then to me, when you take polka dots and yellow shoes, I think Minnie Mouse. I don't think Betty Boop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Minnie is known for like yellow heels, and normally it's like red or pink polka dots, but still, like I see that and I'm like, well, I'm definitely thinking of a retro cartoon character. It's just not the one you think. Mm-hmm. But she's chosen for Teak in the top. Next up, we had Stanley. And Stanley put down, I'm going to bra this because I hate it. Romper! Which to me is just a short jumpsuit. Like, what is a romper if not a tiny jumpsuit?
That is what it is.
What?
I would say that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's an accurate description, like, completely accurate.
Thanks. So Stanley originally in the workroom was going to make a romper and then cover it with a sheath dress. And Anne was like, that seems like a lot. And he's like, well, I'm just going to make both and decide. And sure enough, he spends like more hours on the sheath dress, puts it on over the romper. He's like, yeah, I hate it. It's everything Anne said it would be, which was hilarious. But then he removed it. So it's just a romper. So it's hard to tell, but it looks kind of like a light green, like a really, 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 really light green with like the shimmer kind of like iridescent-y, like threading in the fabric. Mm-hmm. It's a little sleeveless romper with pockets and a Peter Pan collar that he like bedazzled with like big pearls or some type of like little stones, and then it has a zipper in the back, and then it's these little kind of shorts that flare out a bit, and it's right at the top of the thigh. Like, it's a pretty short romper. And he also paired this with yellow heels. What did we think of Stanley's?
I really did not care for this one. I don't know. I didn't like anything about it, really. I don't like his fabric choice. To me, it doesn't move very well. It seems really stiff. And I don't know. It just doesn't look super flattering, and you can't really even, I don't know. I don't feel like it shows off her body that well. And then I hate that collar that he added. It just looks so heavy and out of place to me. I didn't like this one. What'd you think?
I can't think of a moment I've ever looked at a romper and been like, yeah, that's where it's going. For men or for women. This one, the materiality just seems kind of dated, but not in like a cool throwback retro way. Like just dated in like an old tired Stanley made this kind of thing again look. I like that it has pockets. I wish that I don't mind a Peter Pan collar. I don't like this Peter Pan collar. It's too big, it's heavy, it's like bedazzled. The fact that it's white next to this like just barely off-white greenish fabric isn't very interesting. I wish he had picked a different textile for his romper. Or had done something more interesting with the Peter Pan collar than white. Yeah. Like, that's, like, the normal way. So, like, if he'd made that, like, red, like, not with this fabric, but if he chose a different fabric and then made the collar black or something, I don't know, something more interesting. And then pairing this with, like, these, like, not stiletto, they're, like, wedge platform. Oh, no, they are stiletto. So, like, a stiletto platform peep toe sandal, strappy sandal in yellow. Just, I'm like, what even? He chose to critiquing the top though, because okay. Next up we had Ken, who other than his talking head moments, I don't remember seeing much of him in the workroom working. There was one scene where he was like in the sewing room and he like made a mistake and he was like screaming. But otherwise, like his look was a surprise. I felt like I had seen nothing of it.
Yep.
So he put it on like this black like gown. So it's all black. It's kind of like the satiny fabric. It is strapless and it is very low down on her. And it's just this like one big ruffle all the way around the top, slightly longer in the back. And then it's a very high cut up slit, like all the way to the very top of her one thigh. And then the rest of it's kind of cut down and it just gets narrower and narrower to the bottom till it's like a point at the floor. So it's like this tiny little bit of like not even a train. It's just like the bottom of the skirt. What did we think of Ken's?
I'm sensing a trend here for me, because I also didn't like this one. I don't know. To me, this one, it just looked kind of sloppy. And I don't know, I didn't love how he draped the top. To me, it feels like just a lot of fabric. It's just like a lot. And it's just kind of all just hanging down. And then to me, the slit that he put in the skirt part is just, that is so high. Like, super, super revealing. And I don't feel like that would be comfortable for, like, a lot of women, like, regardless of what size you are. Because it's just so high. I don't know.
It's, like, up to the panty line almost. Like, it's, like, way up.
Yeah, like, how is your everyday woman, like, gonna wear that? She's not. I don't know. What do you think?
To me, this just looks droopy.
Yeah.
Like the worst part about strapless dresses when you're actually wearing them is that you're constantly having to pull them up. At least in my experience with any strapless like top or dress I've ever worn, it feels like every 10 minutes you're like yanking that thing back up, which is obviously, and that's what I want to do. I want to like walk on the stage and like yank it up for her about 2 inches. So it looks like it's going to slip down and we're going to have a moment. And then like the droopy frill is just so droopy. If it's so oversized that it just looks like a wilted flower. And then the skirt part, like you said, yeah, the slit's too high cut. And then the thing like just waggled behind her when she walked. It was weird. And to me, this looks more like a Jessica Rabbit outfit than Betty Boop.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I just feel like no one really, even like the designers, like no one really understood Betty Boop or like what to do with that. So they just went with like random draped, sexy dress and it just ended up fitting like other characters and not Betty Boop. But Ken was safe. Next up, we have Fabio, and Fabio put down a little dress. It's strapless, goes all the way to the neck at the on the front, and then the back is kind of like this racer back cutaway. He used this like, it's a similar style textile to what Edmund used, where it looks like this like kind of photoshopped, like it's like black, white, kind of purpley, and like red and pink, and it's like this like it's also been mirrored, and then how he sewed it was, or constructed it, is he put like darting in at the middle, like of her, like where her waist, like her true waist would be, and kind of pulled it in and darted it in, and then used that mirroring of the fabric so that it's fully symmetrical. And then this cuts at like the middle of the thigh. It's a bit poochy in the front because of how he darted it, and in the back there's a little like black kind of moment right above her booty. How did we feel about Fabio's?
This one, I liked it. I thought, the dress was like, it's more on the simple side, or at least it gives that illusion. Like, without the darting, it wouldn't really be much. And I guess, like, if he hadn't chosen a print like this, then it'd be a totally different effect and would kind of look like nothing. But I don't know. I think he chose the print pretty thoughtfully. I like the back. I like that kind of racerback style. And to me, this was one of the like few looks on this episode that actually seemed more like ready to wear. What did you think?
I agree. I feel like this is the only one, or one of very few, that looks like you could buy that off the rack and it would fit sizes from like 2 to like 22. Like, obviously with some alterations in there, but the only thing I don't really like about it is like the kind of poochiness in the front.
Yeah.
Like, I wish he'd put like one more dart in or something, because it's a little gathered there. But otherwise, and he's like the only one who kind of hinted at red. Like, it's more of a pinky color, but it's hinting at red. But I feel like you could see, like, styled slightly differently, you could see like a young starlet wear this to an event. Maybe not like a big serious red carpet event, but something, or like a date night kind of little outfit, like a little simple dress to throw on. I wish the hair was styled more interestingly. Like, everybody went with like these slicked back like ponytails or like updos, and I'm just like, okay, but I feel like the super tight slicked back look isn't really happening anymore. I feel like we're seeing way more like natural hair and like loose like waves and stuff versus these like really slicked back ponytails. And I say that as someone who constantly wears slick back ponytails. Next up, he was safe though. Next up, we have Merlene, and she put down this like royal blue gown, or dress, I should say. It's not a gown. And in classic Merlene style, one half of this is like fitted normal dress. The other half is like bunched up, quote unquote, volume. So it's a strapless dress, cut down to about the middle of the calf in the front, and then in the back it's like just above the knee. It has a nice kind of peekaboo back, and then on the right side of it, it's got like this volumed kind of, it's bunched together at the waist, like kind of brought in at the waist, but it has one piece that comes up the front that like hits her chin on one side, and then it's like bunched in the other side to be like this asymmetrical kind of flowy bit behind her. What did we think of Merlene's?
Well, you know, I love blue, so...
That's good critique.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, I do like the blue that she chose. But, as for the design, again, not my favorite. Didn't really care for it. I feel like the front and the back don't go well together at all. Like, they look like completely different dresses. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not into the whole asymmetrical thing, but to me, it just didn't make any sense. And it just kind of, it's almost like it was being used as like a crutch. Like, I don't know what to do, so I'll just do something weird on one side. Like, I don't know. I didn't see a real, like, strong design in this one. What'd you think?
So knowing that Merlene was originally going to use, like, this, like, white, like, floral pattern with this, I prefer it. I think the solid blue, like it is a very strong
Uh-huh.
blue, and then she used like this neoprene mesh, so it has this interesting texture to it where like in some places she's like double or triple layered it so you can't see through it, and then in other areas it's one layer so you can kind of get a little peek at the skin. I think that's cool, and I like where she did that. But like the half of the dress that doesn't have volume, it's such a basic silhouette that it's just like, so you just added all this other stuff to the other side to make it, hashtag a design, but it
Mm-hmm.
just seems so weird. And then, yeah, knowing that like the winning looks going into Torrid, and obviously they still make high fashion looks, but it's so weird. And then again, like what the heck, where's Betty Boop going in this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. And she was trouser fatigue in the bottom. And then lastly, we had Anthony, who we heard nothing from this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even like see him working or doing anything. I was like, where's my Anthony moment? I don't even think I have a quote from him this week. It's like the saddest day. Um, so he put down a little dress. So it's this black, like really see-through mesh overall, like dress, sleeveless to about the middle thigh. And it's got this black edge, like banding all around it, and then a very visible zipper. And then on the front top of the dress, he has this white, like not ruche, like draped kind of white thicker fabric to the waist, and then from the waist it like wraps around her back as well, and just is like this multiple different tiered little like levels of like flowy skirt kind of over the mesh to kind of hide any bits. What did we think of Anthony's?
This one I thought was just okay. I didn't love the like any of the white fabric. To me, that just it didn't seem like it went with the black mesh, and I don't know. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said something about like having a tissue just plopped on. Maybe it was Josh or
Yeah,
something.
Joshua. Yep.
And I definitely do kind of get that vibe, unfortunately. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's such a stark contrast or something. Maybe that's why. But I do kind of like the mesh she chose, though. So, did that black mesh have a little black polka dot in there?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Yeah. So, from that, I feel like you can get kind of a Betty Boop vibe. But I don't know. Overall, this one, it was just okay. It wasn't a huge success. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the under part of the dress, like the mesh part, a lot better than the white. I think it would have been more successful if he just done more with that kind of silhouette that's kind of very classic, but it feels youthful because of the mesh back. Like, I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
love that the back of this, the top, is really cool. And then it's kind of this like bell skirt at the bottom, but he just obscures all that with his white stuff that I don't get it. And then the styling of this model, like she's got like this huge like slicked back bulbous like bun. And I'm just like, what is Betty Boop about that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I like one part of this a lot, but the rest I don't get it. And I agree with Joshua that it looks like a crumpled up napkin or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not a huge fan. But Anthony was safe. So that leaves us with Joshua, Helen, and Stanley in the top, and Edmund, Char, and Merlene in the bottom. And they immediately said, actually, I don't remember who they said was safe first. So it turns out Joshua was our winner. Do we agree with that?
I guess so. I mean, I guess, yeah, out of everybody, well, I don't know. I feel like maybe I would have actually gone with Fabio. Like, I was surprised that he was safe.
Yeah.
But I suppose out of the three that they chose, yeah, I probably would have gone Joshua. What about you?
I think Joshua's actually felt young.
Yeah.
Slightly too young, or a little pushing the edge of taste, but so's Betty. Like, let's be honest. Like, Betty Boop isn't necessarily known for being a real classy lady, I don't think. But so, yeah, I mean, whatever. And it's nice for Joshua because he hasn't had critique. He's been safe for 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
like, he really hasn't been critiqued. Although there was a few times I think he should have been in the bottom. At least he finally got heard this week. So that means that Joshua will get a line at Torrid, and it's actually already out there available online. And it seems to be that Torrid just made, like, a limited collection of Betty Boop items. There's, like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 items, mostly shirts and, like, one dress. There's one shirt that has the I Heart Betty kind of thing like Joshua's, but it doesn't really look like his. Or the skirt or anything. Although it was nice because at the end of the episode, like once Joshua wins, we got to see Betty Boop wearing like a cartoon version of his outfit. So I kind of liked that because someone had to animate that, and they adjusted it to look like, and it kind of made Betty look a little more modern. Her design is pretty archaic, as I've already said, but and they made the skirt, you couldn't see her, like the white as evidently underneath it. So I think it looked a little better, but have no fear. If you want to go to Torrid, you won't find this outfit on the shelf. You'll just find some like random Betty Boop oversized t-shirts is what the line mostly looked like to me. But it's nice it's already out there. And then that means that Helen and Stanley were safe. So in the bottom again, we had Edmund, Char, and Merlene, and they said, Merlene, barely, but you are safe. So it was between Edmund and Char, and it turns out Char went home. How do we feel?
I feel like this week is kind of hard to argue with that. It's like, I don't know, you can't show the underside of your fabric like that. Like, the design was just a mess this week for her, so I don't know. I do agree. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't like Edmund's either, but Char's had more wrong with it than Edmund's did this week. But I've liked what Char's been doing this season more than Edmund has this season.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bummer that she goes home, but kind of like her original season, I think she lasted longer than she would have. I think Char got the Tim Gunn save on her season.
She did.
Yeah, so, and they both went to like Fashion Week, as I recall, so I don't think Char was necessarily an All-Stars level there, but still, it's a bummer. There were other weak looks this week as well, in my opinion. Otherwise, do you have anything else left to say about this episode before I get to the quotes?
I don't think so. Betty Boop.
Yeah, do you want to go off on a 5-minute rant about Betty Boop? Because I'm here for it.
No, I think you captured it pretty well.
Yeah, I can't wait to get all these hateful tweets and stuff about like Betty Boop is an icon. Tweet me, come at me. Okay, so I've got quite a few quotes this week. A lot of them are pretty short. So Ken talking to Helen when she's like, I've never worked with stripes before, but I want to work with stripes. He was like, I could never bleep with a stripe. He used the F word there, but it was bleeped out, so I won't say it here. This is a clean podcast. But he was I just like the cavalier kind of like casualness that Ken has with certain things, where he's just like, I could never with a stripe. And Helen's like, well, I'm going to have to, ha ha ha. Then Anne, talking to Fabio during her critique, said it needs sex appeal. And she said this of his look last week, which had that high neckline. And he brought other people over and everyone was like, yeah, it looks great. Like, don't change it. And then this week she said the same thing. She actually said it needs sex appeal like 2 or 3 times to him. It's just like, Anne, why? Like, she was better this week, but she still says stuff like that where it's just like, can you explain why it needs sex appeal in a different way than it already had by being tight-fitting and showing a lot of leg? Like, what else do you want? Then Joshua, talking head moment, said, I'm crying for critique. He's like, I've been safe for 5 weeks and that's great, but I'm crying for critique. And last week, he was like, do I have to send a model naked down the runway to get some critique? Like, he's desperate to, like, talk to the judges. And he's just been making, like, more and more, like, not lewd, but, like, taste issued items, I'd say. Then Ken, talking about Char's look, said it's looking a hot ass mess. And like I said, Ken did not pull any punches this episode. His talking head moments, like, they showed less Anthony, who is usually hilarious and sassy, but like generally about like the situation, like a little less on people generally. But Ken is always like bringing it right, like he's bringing the shade right on. And he was talking to Char about her dress in the workroom. She's like, "Is this shade? It's not done yet. Is this shade?" And it's just like, yes, throw it back at him. Like, don't let Ken walk all over you. Then Char talking about neoprene and the struggle with it. She's like, "It's a good lesson to learn, just not on a design you could go home on," which is true, and which is why I don't understand why designers on this show, especially All-Stars, take such big risks with things they've never used before unless the challenge calls for it. Like, there's nothing about a Betty Boop challenge that makes me think neoprene or stripes or necessarily, right? So it just, like, I like that quote of, like, it's good to learn that, like, neoprene's hard to work with, but maybe not in the middle of a show where you randomly made that choice for yourself. Mm-hmm. No one was like, you have to make neoprene. Like, no. Then Georgina Tourmaline, who was in the bottom, Georgina talking about Betty Boop, said, "She's all about bust, waist, and ass." It's just like, wow, what a great icon to be recreated in 2018. That's what we need, more over-sexualized women who can't speak for themselves. Yay! And especially coming from Georgina Chapman with all that's been going on. I know that this was filmed before it came to light, but as we've already said, it was not before it happened, and I find it very hard to believe that you could be married to someone for years and have no idea that he's a womanizer.
Yeah.
To the level that he was, like, criminally. So it's just like, thank God we know that Betty Boop's only about bust, waist, and ass. Thanks, Georgina. Next, we had Rebecca talking about Char's look, saying, "This looks like something out of a freshman student competition," which isn't wrong, but this is the only Rebecca quote I really have, but she had more insightful things to say as a designer, like that, which means that she's probably sat in as, like, a judge on some competitions and has seen, like, junior work, you know, and is like, this is junior work, this is not all-star work, you know, working with a fabric you're not familiar with, but still trying to manipulate it like a new fabric or like an old design instead of what the fabric actually wants to do. Next up, we had Isaac with his, like, quote of the season, according to Project Runway's Twitter. Oh my gosh. "Young and chic, we want to see it every week."
Oh my God.
Because he was like, not just this week, I want to see young, hip, fresh things. Like people wearing, I think he was saying, he's like people wearing in LA or people in France who are wearing, like thrift clothes is like the example he gave, which, you know, wearing like retro thrifty clothes is kind of in right now, but it's just like, really. And then when Char went home, I always like to get some quotes of people when they were leaving, and Char always had like these little nuggets. I love it. So she's like, "You just have to take it as it comes and be grateful for the opportunity," which is true. Even if you go out first on one of these shows, you were on national television, people got to see your design, and before the show airs, usually they show like even more of you, like your design portfolio, to get people ready. So that's kind of nice. And then she said, "The world will always give you no's. You have to make it a yes." And I love that quote. So good, Char. Like, especially from Char's original season, where while she's not necessarily the strongest designer, she got shit on her season a lot. Especially, I think her name was Karina. But there were other people too who were constantly saying like all this bad stuff about Char. And some of it's true and some of it's not, but it's just like, in all things in life, there will be struggle. There will be people who are like, you're not good enough. You're not. And you have to be like, yes, I am. Or you're going to change yourself to be good at something. Like, no one's terrible at it. So I just really like that quote. Yeah. You have to make it a yes. Like, nothing is anyone else's fault. Most of the time, it's something you can do. You can rise above. So our next week preview, I've got 3 words for you again. Well, 3 phrases. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Avant-garde, RuPaul, Joshua Sass. So it's our avant-garde challenge, which is already super exciting. And with the all-stars we have left, I think we could see some cool stuff. RuPaul as a judge is obviously going to be, I hope, hilarious, but also insightful. Because he's kind of a character, but I'm excited for that. And then Joshua coming off of a win this week with a nice prize. Like, they showed a few scenes of him in the workroom and on the runway giving such intense attitude to the judges that I'm just like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? So, looks like next week could be hopefully an uptick over this week. Avant-garde's always exciting. Having kind of a fun, interesting guest judge could be exciting. The theme of the avant-garde will be interesting. So hopefully we can move past this like Betty Boop bullshit. And sorry, I said I'll keep it clean. I didn't. I'm upset. This season is really underwhelming me, and it's All Stars. I should be wowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not. And then we've gotten rid of so many of the people I was excited to see. Like Candace and Kelly, Amanda, Ari, like they're gone. And it's just like,
yep.
And some of the people who are left, I'm just like, what exactly is Stanley bringing to this show? Or Kimberly. Like, no offense, people, but like, you're not even an interesting character, let alone a designer. So it's like, how are you here? But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's still early in the season. We're not even halfway there.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing statements, Maggie?
I just want to sidebar. I'm on their website. It says the new episode is February 22nd. Is there no new episode next week for some reason?
Oh, I don't know. Why wouldn't there be? Oh, maybe it's because of the Olympics?
Yeah, but this is Lifetime. Lifetime shouldn't have any conflict with the Olympics, but...
Oh. Well, I guess...
That's the only thing, that could be going on that I would know of.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll keep an eye on that for you guys, and if there's no episode next week, then we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do tend to skip one, I guess. This seems like an odd time, but I don't know. I'm not a TV executive. I'm not even an executive.
Me neither.
Any other closing statements?
No, I'm really looking forward to the avant-garde episode. It's gotta be better than some of these episodes that we've had, especially Betty Boop.
I hope so. So you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Rav Runway. We are also on iTunes, Google Play, Podiant, and a bunch of other podcast sources out there. YouTube, WordPress, Rav Runway, or Runway from the Rav. So find us, tweet us, Instagram us, whatever you want. And we will see you guys next week. Boop boop ba doop. I hate myself. All right.